Derrick Lawson never thought a garden could start a war. To him, the small patch of earth behind his townhouse wasn't just soil, it was peace. After his wife, Angela, passed 3 years ago, the quiet that filled the house felt unbearable. But outside, under the Arizona sun, life still moved. Seeds still sprouted. Flowers still bloomed. So every weekend, Derrick was out there, kneeling in faded jeans, hands buried in dirt, coaxing life back into something beautiful. But in his neighborhood, beauty was only allowed in one form, the HOA's version of it. Grass cut to regulation height, shrubs trimmed at perfect angles, and no unauthorized landscaping. That's where Pamela Hensley came in, mid-50s, sharp as a desert wind, with a voice that could cut through walls and a clipboard that never left her hand. Pamela didn't just follow HOA rules, she lived by them. To her, uniformity was peace and difference was disorder. And Derrick's garden, with its wild tomatoes and bright marigolds spilling past the fence, was disorder. The first time she complained, Derrick thought it was harmless. She approached him one Saturday morning while he was watering his basil. "Mr. Lawson," she said, "you know the HOA has guidelines about vegetation height." He smiled politely. "These aren't hedges, ma'am. They're vegetables." Pamela adjusted her sunglasses. Guidelines don't differentiate. Rules are rules. Derrick chuckled softly. Rules should make sense. She didn't respond, just took a picture and walked away. He didn't think much of it until 3 days later, when a white envelope appeared in his mailbox. Violation notice. Unauthorized landscaping. A $250 fine. Derrick laughed when he read it. "Over tomatoes," he muttered. But laughter turned to irritation when another notice came. Then another. By the end of the week, Pamela was back, standing at the curb with another clipboard. "You're racking up fines, Mr. Lawson. You can avoid more if you remove the plants now." Derrick wiped sweat from his forehead. "Ma'am, these plants are on my property. I've checked the plat maps. I'm well within my line." Pamela raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? Because according to HOA records, that strip near your fence belongs to the community." Derrick frowned. "That's not possible. I bought this land outright 10 years ago. Every inch of it." Pamela's smile was tight. "Then I'm sure you won't mind if we verify that with the city." 2 mornings later, Derrick came home from work to find a city pickup parked in front of his house. A man in khaki uniform and a utility badge stood beside Pamela, pointing at the garden. "Code enforcement," the man said. "We had a complaint about unauthorized construction on HOA property." Derrick blinked. "Construction? You mean my planter boxes?" Pamela crossed her arms. "You extended your fence. That's encroachment." Derrick exhaled slowly. "This side yard was mine before you even moved here. I have the deed." Pamela tilted her head. "Then produce it. Otherwise, this will go on record." Derrick walked inside, pulled out his old filing box, and dug through years of papers until he found it. The faded deed stamped 2014, signed by the city of Phoenix. He'd purchased the extra 10-foot strip when the HOA declined to maintain it. At the time, Pamela wasn't even living there. He brought the paper back outside and handed it to the inspector. The man read it, eyebrows rising. "This says you purchased the parcel outright." Pamela's smile flickered. "That can't be right. The HOA was offered the land and turned it down." Derrick said quietly, "I bought it, paid taxes on it ever since." The inspector nodded slowly. "Then you're within your rights, sir. Sorry for the trouble." Pamela's voice sharpened. "We'll see what the HOA board says about that." By evening, an email blasted through the community. Urgent. Neighborhood noncompliance and safety concerns. Pamela wrote that a resident was claiming private ownership of community property and building unapproved structures that attract pests and lower curb appeal. Derrick's stomach turned as he read the message. Within hours, neighbors he'd waved to for years stopped responding to his greetings. Some avoided eye contact altogether. He overheard whispers. "He's breaking rules. He's trying to take land that's not his." You know how these things start. It escalated fast. The HOA called an emergency meeting for the following week. Derrick arrived early, manila folder in hand. The clubhouse buzzed with low conversation, suspicion hanging heavy in the air. Pamela stood near the podium in a floral blouse, her smile tight and practiced. "Neighbors," she began, "we all value harmony here. But recently, one resident's disregard for rules has put that harmony at risk." She gestured toward a photo slideshow, pictures of Derrick's garden, zoomed in to look chaotic. This so-called garden encroaches on shared property, violates landscaping standards, and creates potential hazards. It's not about plants. It's about respect. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Derrick felt eyes shift toward him. When Pamela finished, Howard, the HOA president, turned to Derrick. "Mr. Lawson, you'll have a chance to respond." Derrick stood, his voice calm but firm. "With all due respect, I haven't disrespected anyone. What I've done is care for my property, the property I own." He held up the deed, placing it on the table. "This strip of land she's talking about? It was city-owned until 2014. The HOA had first rights to buy it. They declined. So I did." He passed copies to the board. "The records are public. You can check them." Pamela scoffed. "That's impossible. I would have known." Derrick looked at her evenly. "You moved here in 2016. Laughter rippled through the back of the room. Howard squinted at the papers. "These appear legitimate." Victor, another board member, nodded. "I can confirm this parcel number. It matches his address." Pamela's smile stiffened. "Even if that's true, it's still against our design code." Derrick's patience cracked slightly. "You fined me for gardening on land I bought. You called the city, embarrassed me, turned neighbors against me, and for what? Because my yard doesn't look like everyone else's." The room went quiet. Pamela's face flushed. "This isn't about you, Mr. Lawson. It's about community standards." Derrick sighed. "No, it's about control." After the meeting, the board ruled that Derrick had acted within his rights and cleared all fines. But Pamela didn't stop. She doubled down. More emails, more whispers. Soon, rumors twisted the story again, that Derrick had forged a deed, that he found a loophole, that the HOA might lose insurance because of him. One evening, Derrick came home to find a note taped to his door. "Some people think the rules don't apply to them. We see you." He took a deep breath, trying to let it roll off, but it hurt. All he'd ever done was plant something good, and somehow that made him the villain. The next morning, his sister called from Atlanta. "I saw that email someone forwarded online." She said, "You okay?" Derrick rubbed his forehead. "I'm fine, just tired. I never thought a garden could cause this much hate." His sister's voice softened. "They're not mad about the garden, D. They're mad because they can't control it. Keep standing your ground." Days turned to weeks, and the tension only grew. Some neighbors started showing quiet support. Mr. Klein from across the street stopped by with lemonade one evening. "Don't let her bully you," he said. "I was on the board back then. We all voted not to buy that land. You saved us from paying extra taxes." That night, Derrick finally slept soundly, but his peace didn't last. The following Monday, another city inspector showed up, this time from the zoning department. "We got another complaint," the man said apologetically. "Claims of unpermitted irrigation lines." Derrick laughed bitterly. "She really doesn't quit." He led the inspector around back, showing every hose and valve. "All standard, all permitted." The man shrugged. "Everything checks out, sir. Sorry again." When the truck drove off, Derrick stood by his fence, staring at Pamela's house. Her blinds twitched. She was watching. He whispered under his breath, "You want a war? Fine." That evening, he drafted a letter to the HOA board. Calm, detailed, professional. He outlined the harassment, the false complaints, the fines, and the defamation. He attached every document, the city deeds, tax receipts, even the inspector reports clearing him. The next morning, he emailed it to the board and CC'd every resident. By sunset, the neighborhood was buzzing again, but this time, the story had flipped. People were shocked. The records were undeniable. Pamela's campaign had been built on lies. Neighbors who'd ignored Derrick began stopping by to apologize. Even Howard knocked on his door one evening. "Mr. Lawson," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I should have stopped this sooner." Derrick nodded. "Apology accepted. Just make sure it doesn't happen to the next person." But Pamela couldn't let go. At the next HOA meeting, she stormed in late, face flushed, clutching papers. "You might have fooled them," she snapped, "but I filed a complaint with the city attorney. We'll see how long your little garden lasts." Derrick didn't rise to it. He simply opened his folder again. "Pamela," he said, his tone even, "you've spent weeks trying to destroy something you could have just asked about. Do you know why I started that garden?" She hesitated. "To break rules, apparently." Derrick shook his head slowly. "After my wife died, I couldn't stand being inside. The garden was the only thing that made me feel human again. Every vine out there grew from something she and I planted together before she got sick. So when you call it messy or dangerous or illegal, you're not just talking about dirt. You're talking about my peace." The room went still. Pamela's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. For the first time, Derrick saw something flicker behind her eyes. Regret, maybe, or just exhaustion. She lowered her papers. "I didn't know," she muttered. "You didn't ask," Derrick replied softly. "You just assumed." Howard cleared his throat. "I think this discussion is over. The board has reviewed everything. Mr. Lawson's property is fully compliant. No further action will be taken." Pamela gathered her things, trembling slightly. "You're making a mistake," she said, but her voice had lost its edge. That night, Derrick sat on his porch under the soft glow of his garden lights. Crickets chirped. The air was warm and forgiving. He looked out over the rows of tomatoes, basil, and marigolds and smiled faintly. Across the street, a few neighbors waved. Even the ones who doubted him seemed to see him differently now. He whispered to himself, "Funny how something as small as a seed can reveal who people really are." He took a deep breath, feeling a quiet peace return. The garden had survived. He had, too. Weeks later, the city sent him an official apology letter for the erroneous complaints. And Pamela? She quietly resigned from the HOA board, citing personal reasons. Her yard, once pristine and bare, now sat empty, a patch of lifeless grass beside a vibrancy of color across the street. And one by one, other neighbors began planting their own gardens. A rose bush here, a tomato vine there. It wasn't long before the whole block began to bloom. Derrick never gloated. He just kept tending his plants, watering them at dawn, whispering softly the same words he used to tell Angela. Keep growing. Because the lesson he'd learned was simple but powerful. Control is fragile, but truth endures. Entitlement can shout, but it can't root itself in soil it doesn't own. And when you nurture something with patience, kindness, and integrity, not even the loudest voices can stop it from growing. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And let's keep the conversation going.